All right, everyone. It's Friday, and we know what that means. That means we are on the Manufacturing Ecommerce Success Series show. I am one of your co-hosts, Damon Pistolka, and that guy right over here, Kurt Anderson, partner in crime. Take it away, my friend.
What is up, brother? Happy Friday, dude. You know, it's bittersweet today because I think what's happening Sunday? Is there something going on Sunday? I'm not.
Yes.
Like, is there a golf tournament or tennis or?
Like, there is actually the Phoenix Open.
That's right, Phoenix Open. I think there might be a football game. Football is coming to an end, but the positive thing is spring's right around the corner for us baseball fans. Baseball's right around the corner. Damon, who are you taking in the Super Bowl, dude?
I would like the Chiefs to win, but I think the Eagles are going to win.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. So happy Super Bowl weekend to everybody. Happy Friday. So, man, what an honor. What a privilege for myself to introduce two manufacturing marketing rock stars. So I'm going to kick things off. I've got Jeff White on stage. Jeff, happy Friday, dude. How are you?
I'm great, Kurt. Nice to be chatting with you.
Oh, thank you, man. This is such an honor, such a privilege. And Carman Pirie. Carman, how's it going, my friend?
Man, it's going well. I share this Friday excitement, but usually because it ends in a lot of old fashions. But whatever gets you going, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, I know, and you guys, you're that much closer to the weekend than we are. So these guys are just live from Nova Scotia. Man, I would talk about a bucket list, Damon. I am dying to get up to see these guys. They live in an amazing place. So if we got John Buglino here today. So guys, if you're out there, drop a note. Let us know that you're out there. Drop a note and a hello to Jeff and Carman. We've dropped their LinkedIn profiles, their website. They've got a great podcast. So let me just run through a couple quickies here. So these guys have Kula Partners. They are manufacturing marketing rock stars. They have a great podcast called Kula Ring. So before we take a deep dive into marketing, I'd like to kick things off with a little question here, right, Damon? We'll hit it. So now I'm going to pick, since there's two on stage, I'm going to pick one. And then Damon, I have a totally different question. So Carman, I'm going to come at you. Jeff, I'm going to have a totally different question for you, my friend. But Carman, as a little boy growing up, dude, you're like the superhero of manufacturing marketing, helping manufacturers all over the place. When you were a little boy growing up, who was your hero? Who was your hero when you were a little boy growing up?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the first time we've had Kareem. Can you please elaborate?
Well, I grew up as a kid playing basketball, and I'm 6'2" now. But I think I was like 6'2" when I was 10 years old, almost. Like I grew really fast, early, and so so as a kid playing basketball, I was the only kid allowed on my team to do a sky hook because I obsessively practiced the sky hook, like to my hands bled calluses.
Nice.
And so I don't know. I was a Laker fan because everybody else was a Boston Celtics fan over here on the East Coast. So I was a Lakers fan to be contrary.
Yep.
And Kareem was the guy. And then I just read a piece from Kareem yesterday or the day before about LeBron's breaking his record. And there's lots of reason to still like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The guy's a top human.
Class act. Well, all right. So for anybody under the age of 40, just to enlighten you, right?
They got no idea what the sky hook is.
One of the greatest basketball players of all time. So that was a phenomenal answer. And so Carman, and it ties in perfectly with LeBron breaking the record this week. So that was perfect. Haven't had that answer before. That was perfect. So guys, just Google it. If you're under the age of 40, just Google it and you'll see how amazing he was for us older guys.
And you guys need to understand, he did the exact same move every time. It was this fake right and then a hook. And for some reason, nobody could do anything about it.
Nobody could stop it.
That's awesome.
It really makes no sense when you think about it. So you should have been able to figure it out. But
somebody should have been able to stop it. Be Parrish or somebody back in the day, right? Somebody, but nobody could stop that dreaded hook. So Jeff, I'm going to come at you with a different question. Actually, I'm not very original. I don't have another question. As a young boy growing up, who was your hero, my friend? Who was your hero as a young boy growing up?
Oh man, I wish I could say things like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I really, really never got into any team sports whatsoever. Kula Partners is actually the first time I've ever been a team player at all, to be honest.
Wow.
I like individual sports, and to that end, I was always a huge fan of BMX guy named Matt Hoffman and Tony Hawk.
Yes.
I mean, Tony Hawk is
Tony
just
Hawk, legend.
what a guy, what a
Legend.
guy. And so I grew up as a skateboarder and a BMXer, and now I've been mountain biking my whole life. My kids are into it, and I
Nice.
just like kind of those sorts of sports. And I always enjoyed what a lot of those people kind of embodied about those sports, you know, kind of like pushing your limits and really trying new things and doing things that are maybe a little outside of the norm, you know. And I've just always been into folks like that. I'm not a huge kind of hero sort of guy, you know. I like to follow people, but yeah, no, it's pretty hard to say anything negative about Tony, and Matt Hoffman is just this crazy guy who's broken every bone in his body 17 times and continues to get out there and do it, you know. So I appreciate the tenacity. I've always said that you know, the two people that we'll always consider hiring here at Kula are people who've worked in a kitchen or people who've been skateboarding, because they just have this kind of stick-to-itiveness that very few other people do. So I like that.
Well, man, how about, you know what, Damon, like we could end the program right there on those answers, man. That was just phenomenal. And what I love is a sports analogy, you know, like when you think of just relentless entrepreneurs, you know, Carman, you nailed it on the head, just great team player, leader, just did it the right way, you know, tenacity, consistency for a long time. And then you take Tony Hawk, like when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to break a lot of bones along the way. It's very risky. And what I love, Jeff, on your LinkedIn profile, like if I'm not mistaken, like you have a picture with you in the helmet, and you in your profile, you talk about you and your 3 kids and you're out biking. And so, you know, you've made it personal, and you kind of talk about this is what you bring to the table. And I love how you bring that to your business. So let's go here. You guys are just been at this for a long time. You could have, you know, brought your superpowers to any different industry. Why manufacturing? I'll throw it out to either one of you, whoever wants to go first. But out of all the different industries that you guys could choose to help with marketing, why manufacturing?
I guess I can answer that one, Jeff. We're probably both quite capable of answering it, but I think you know, for us, it's kind of twofold. You know, one is the practicality in running an agency, where you look deeply at a certain point about, you know, where you're really making impact and where you're seeing the traction and where you're getting excited, and then you try to lean into that. So that would be one part of it. But I think the other part of it that maybe is a little kind of outside of us is, you know, manufacturers have a bit of a unique ability to contribute to the economic well-being of a geographically contained area. Now, I appreciate that a lot of manufacturers are global in nature, but you know, you don't hear a lot about a lot of towns being called one accounting firm towns. You know, like that's a one law firm town. Yeah, you know, but there are one company towns, right? There are like the one factory that kind of builds a community. So I kind of, you know, there's something connected to our communities and how we move ourselves and society collectively forward that is ingrained in that ability to manufacture either the goods that you need or the goods that you need to trade. So you know, that kind of lies underneath of it for us. We don't talk about that a lot, but it is kind of, you know, just next door to where Jeff grew up, in the middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia. I mean, you would drive by this place on your way if you were driving to Peggy's Cove, which got famous during the Swiss air crash because all of the global media kind of camped out at Peggy's Cove and used the iconic lighthouse in the backdrop of the news coverage. Well, Jeff grew up next door to this place, right? And on your drive out there, you would go right past a manufacturer that Jeff's dad worked at for 40 some odd years. And that employs 400 or 500 people.
Yeah, and ships you know, radio transmitters all over the world. It's pretty crazy to think of. Dad joined. Yeah. He was like the 4th employee. It was crazy.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So it's just an interesting kind of look at the power of that. And it's interesting to contribute to that, to be a part of that. And we get kind of our jollies out of being a part of that in a lot of different places in the world. We have clients in California, clients in India, and clients in here in Nova Scotia. So kind of interesting to see that flourish.
Well, that's awesome. And Jeff, you know what? I'm going to throw the same question at you. And I'd love to, if you want to dig deeper in like Dad's story, employee number 4, and all of a sudden like it blows up and now it's 500 employees. But, just share like why manufacturing? Why did you bring your talents, your superpowers to manufacturing?
Oh man, that's interesting. Cause I mean, dad was a draftsman, or dad is well, he's retired now, but he's still with us. But he's a draftsman, and so he was designing things that were kind of coming to market. And I always found that really interesting to kind of watch his career as they moved from paper and pen and drafting tables into into computers and CAD and all that kind of thing. And then my mom was an entrepreneur who owned a craft business and basically made crafts all the time. So it was just sort of one of those things that was always omnipresent in our house. Mom would get up at like 6 a.m, work till midnight, manufacturing things. I think she probably could have found a better way, to maybe not work so many hours to do these things. But, she's certainly driven from that perspective to create something and bring something new into the world. And I know that Dad was always proud of kind of what he contributed to that and how that company grew. I mean, in the last number of years, they would be that company would be like number 1 or 2 in the world in terms of manufacturing radio transmitters. Wow. Coming from this tiny little place outside of Halifax, Nova Scotia. So, yeah, I think it would be a little bit rich for me to say that was the reasoning behind us moving towards manufacturing as a kind of a center of where to focus. But I think it's always kind of been something that we find really appealing is creating something, bringing it to life, and then kind of seeing how that comes to be part of the world is pretty interesting. And the B2B side where we primarily work is particularly interesting. I think it's more interesting than a lot of B2C marketers think. It's a pretty cool place to be.
Because you find new stuff, right? Like it's interesting when you work with manufacturers, you're like
you build what?
Yeah. You have sensors whose only job is to sense if the other sensors are working correctly. Are you kidding me? It's that kind of thing where I don't know. We find it interesting, but maybe we're weird.
Yeah. Right. And hey, Damon, and happy Friday, Val. Val says, and hey, you know what? Manufacturing is just simply cool. How about that, guys? So, Jeff, I want to come back to you. So you mentioned mom and dad. Sounds like they could have been heroes of yours. And so you got a little bit of little taste of dad with manufacturing, entrepreneurship with mom. Now you are a user experience expert. I know you guys were you mentioned before we went live, one of the first HubSpot Platinum partners in Canada. So how about why marketing? Why did you, we could have gone in different fields. What attracted you to marketing?
Oh man, it's a bit of an interesting road, and my kind of partnership with Carman is a big part of that, sort of later down that road. But I knew even when I was a kid that I wanted to be a designer. I always wanted to be a visual designer. When I was 16 years old, I worked for a graphic design firm for a summer. I only applied to design school when I graduated from high school. I was going all in, right? And then the web came along in the mid 90s. And I started to learn how to. It's
just a fad. It's not going to last.
It's just a little thing, let's stick with CD-ROMs. I'm pretty sure one of my professors actually said that. Right. And I really latched onto that. So I was building websites back before Netscape was even a browser. And I always wanted to kind of bring interactive tools to life. Right. And that, in terms of Kula, our agency kind of has 2 different kind of streams of expertise. And one of them is the marketing strategy side, which Carman leads and brings a lot of expertise and, just deep understanding of how and why people buy. And, my side is more on the design, the development, coding, kind of bringing those things to life. And I really focus on designing with the end user in mind and just having a deep understanding of exactly how people are going to move through digital properties and other experiences like that, and want to make sure that everyone is able to do that. So have a real accessibility lens to things, and want to make sure that we're, building and designing things that anybody can use no matter what device they're browsing it with. And just how do you kind of activate those strategies that Carman and his side of the agency draft and craft. Yeah. And our job is to help bring those to life digitally and offline as well.
That's awesome. Carman, I saw a quote somewhere. I'm not sure where I found it. And I think, so correct me if I'm wrong here. Your team goes above and beyond to help our manufacturing clients craft digital experiences that transform how they engage buyers, serve customers, and outpace the competition. Dude, drop the mic. I love it. So just share a little bit. So Jeff's pointing out, like, you're on the other side of the firm, what brought you into marketing, and just share a little bit of like your superpowers when you come in and help your manufacturers on your side of things.
Yeah, I don't know why marketing really. I mean, it just always seems like I've been in the business of trying to persuade people of something. I started my career oddly in politics. I didn't like marketing in university. I thought they treated it as being too scientific, and it felt to me like it was more of an art, which is interesting because I think people would probably look at our agency and say we sit more on the science side of marketing than the art side.
Yeah.
So I've a long history of talking out of both sides of my mouth. So it was an ideal career.
Politics or marketing?
Exactly.
Exactly.
So,
Nice.
it became I don't know that there was any one big aha moment that said, oh, marketing is it. But as you kind of continue to lean into that world early in my career, it just kind of one thing leads to another. But look, when we work with manufacturers and we think about this world, you mentioned kind of like how do we think about helping them, and and my way of thinking of it, we really look at where is that intersection between the niche orientation of a B2B manufacturer, because B2B manufacturers differ in the extent to which they serve and thrive in niche categories. A manufacturer, say like Klein Tools, that manufactures pliers for electricians, well, that they need to be a almost a household name across that trade in a very big way. But you contrast that with say a flexible packaging manufacturer that focuses maybe on the frozen food industry.
Yeah.
Like we have a client that focuses on the frozen food and the pet food, premium pet food segments. And, in those instances, you only have, a couple of hundred clients that could possibly buy from them.
Mm-hmm.
So that relative market nicheness changes a lot of the strategy that you bring to bear and how you think about this work. So we look at that contrasted with the ability for a B2B manufacturer's marketing and sales and customer service organization. What's that ability to go to market against a set of target accounts or against a target vertical? We call that account-based revenue competency. So I guess, Kurt, when you say, trying to go, whatever got us into marketing, and then kind of what do we try to bring to bear, or how do we think about, I'm challenged to use your word superpowers, but you used it, not me, I guess. But how do we think about it? Well, that's how we think about it. And I think that is a bit of the secret sauce. Candidly, I don't know anybody else that thinks about it in quite that way.
I love it. And I know on your site, and again, guys, so we're here with Carman, we're here with Jeff. They're coming to us live from Nova Scotia. They're with they own co-founders of Kula Partners. Drop us a note. Let us know that you're out there. I'd love for you to connect with these guys. They are, as you can tell, just marketing rock stars. I do, you piqued my curiosity. I was doing a little homework on you guys. So Kula Partners. Does anybody want to share, like, where'd the name come from? After smirking, do you want to answer that one? Where'd you get the name Kula Ring? I think there's a little interesting background there. Is there not, or what's that look like?
Yeah, I'll let Carman tell the story
of
kind of what it actually means. But where when we were forming the agency back in, started the company in 2004 and kind of formed what is now Kula in 2009, and we were talking about what are we going to name this thing?
Yeah,
and there's a number of different ways that you can kind of do that when you're starting something. Usually the combine the last names of the founders or something like that. But with White is boring and potentially racist, and Perry, nobody can spell it the way that Carman has it spelled. So we're like, this is a non-starter, so we can't go there. And,
go back to drawing board.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could do like Purple Frog or something that just means nothing. And Carman had this idea that he had, I think you saw in some of the early Web 2.0 days, and some of those really smart early marketers were talking about this thing called the Kula ring, and how it kind of related to social media. And we kind of grasped that idea and ran with it a little bit. Why don't you tell them a bit about kind of what it actually is from, Carman?
Yeah, guys. If you guys know of one of the more original kind of Web 2.0 voices back in the day, Hugh McLeod. So he had a website called gapingvoid.com. He was famous for doing cartoons drawn on the back of business cards. So if you look behind me, that's from Hugh. That's he drew that cartoon, People Matter, Objects Don't, which has been at the kind of core of the firm from the start. And Hugh, back in the day, was doing some interesting kind of work around this notion of what he called social objects. And he saw a lot of what was happening in the world of marketing as the creation of social objects, these things that connect people to each other, but don't really in and of themselves mean a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So it was, and the comparison started getting drawn to the Kula ring, which is a tribal trading network in Papua New Guinea, where tribes trade pieces of Kula, necklaces and bracelets that are made out of seashells. And these things that don't intrinsically have much value in and of themselves. They're really only valuable in that they are traded in these very elaborate ceremonies that connect communities to each other. So we really see the world of marketing and sales even as the creation of endless pieces of Kula that are intended to bring people together. That's why we create what we create. So we named the firm Kula Partners. And if you look at the logo that Jeff designed for the agency, you'll notice that it fits the perfect ratio as do seashells when they grow. They
the
grow
golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. Indeed. And you also notice the different circles in the logo representing the trading of necklaces in one direction and bracelets in another. So there's a little bit that kind of went into that, and we think it's pretty special. But I've got to tell you, Kurt, it takes an awful long time to explain it.
It was worth every minute.
Worth it, yeah.
If I told you like how flippant it was when I created my name, it was like, so I love the intention and how creative that was. Damon, what do you think?
Yeah, we had no creativity in the name.
Yeah, none. I had no creativity. Yeah, you guys.
What are you doing?
Okay, right. Yeah, you're so far above where I'm at. So
yeah, but it's an awesome story because it does make sense in how you're talking about how the Kula trading is like marketing objects, and how that brings the community together, and how it brings communities together and allows people to understand each other. And yeah, really, really interesting.
And it's a good, I think marketers ought to not take themselves too seriously. We ought not to think about what we create as being too precious. And maybe we shouldn't worship at the altar of the bright, shiny object. And kind of that's what this encourages us to do, is to say, it's about bringing people together. That's the important piece of what you're creating.
And when you look at the history, and so I did a little digging, and I thought it was brilliant. I saw, it's a community exchanging goods, and I thought it was brilliant. So let's go here. So you guys started this marketing firm together. You guys come together as partners. I'm going to go into your podcast for a second. You know, a lot of manufacturers are starting to tip their toe into going into podcasting, a little out of their comfort zone per se. What inspired you guys? You know, and I was familiar with you guys. As a matter of fact, I think you've been doing this for a long time. I feel like I was familiar with you guys before COVID. What inspired you guys to turn on the podcast switch for you? And second part of that question, what has it done for you? You guys have phenomenal topics, great guests. What's the podcast meant and done for you? Why did you get it started? And a couple questions there for you guys.
Well, we do have phenomenal guests. I mean, Kurt, you were on there. It was great.
Well, you know what? I will say this, Jeff. My mom's favorite guest of Kula Ring is me. But I mean, other than my mom, I don't know if anybody else listened, but you guys have great topics, great guests. You're covering all sorts of different scopes of work around manufacturers. So guys, if you haven't checked it out, we dropped in the chat. You absolutely want to check out their podcast. But what inspired you to start it, and just what's it done for you and your business?
I think it's kind of twofold. You know, we started the podcast about 4 years ago. I think we've interviewed somewhere around 200 guests so far. We've republished a few episodes, you know, some great stuff, bringing it forward. But I you know, as an agency, we're a small-ish agency. I think we're like 16 people right now, maybe 17. And, you know, we can only take on so many clients, and we only want so many clients.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be experts in our clients' business, so we can't have hundreds of them. But we can talk to an awful lot of people and get their perspectives and bring in, you know, we've been very fortunate to have people from the tiniest, you know, 1, 2, 3 person regional manufacturers who are just starting out to, you know, multi-billion-dollar VPs of marketing at some of the largest manufacturers in the world, like GE and Honeywell and Schneider Electric, and you name it. Like, we've had a great group of guests on this show. And so what the show's allowed us to do is to connect with people, you know, that idea of the Kula Ring and kind of creating something together, which is what we're doing right now and what we do with the Kula Ring. And, you know, what we can learn from this massive group of expert manufacturing marketers just helps to extend our thinking about what's going on in the game of manufacturing marketing right now. What are people doing? What are they excited about? What can we learn, and what can we bring to our clients? And also, while at the same time creating this great network of people who are all sort of connected to each other through this thing called the Kula Ring.
Yeah, I love that. Carman, how about from your perspective, what's it done for you and what you feel from a perspective as an entrepreneur business owner? And I'm going to slide into another part of that question. Any advice or suggestions for manufacturers or somebody out there that like, hey, we're thinking about podcasting. So what's it meant and done for you? And like, how about for somebody that's new and thinking about it? What advice do you have?
I mean, in terms of the why, again, you know, it's funny because once you know what underlies the Kula Ring and the Kula Partners name and why we name the agency that and how we think about it, then you can basically explain everything that we do and realize that we're a one-trick pony. Because quite honestly, the Kula Ring is simply about connecting people to each other. It's really not much more complicated than that. And you have to have a bit of faith in this world that through the act of connecting people to each other, that business will find its way through that.
Yeah,
it's not a direct line. Like people, you know, we don't interview people and then they come on as clients the next day. That very rarely happens. We have had podcast guests turn into clients, but that's not why we do it. So yeah, it's about connecting people to each other and not trying to be too prescriptive after that. My advice to people would be to do that, to lean into it. I'm not saying though do podcasting. I'm saying do whatever works for you. We found podcasting works pretty well because quite honestly, it doesn't take up a whole lot of our time and energy. Like we can, Jeff and I can brief on a guest 5 minutes before we hit record. And after having a 15-minute kind of conversation with them in advance, and man, you can turn out a pretty good conversation. We enjoy doing it. It doesn't feel like a heavy lift. And I think that's I think it's important to be honest with yourself about that. And it was an easy decision for Jeff and I because we had a face for radio. So we're like, a podcast is awesome.
Dude, if I look like you guys, I'd be on the cover of GQ. Are you kidding me, man? Look at you guys, hey, man, look how handsome they are. But I absolutely love that. So, all right, let's slide into, and I won't use superpowers, but you guys are definitely dedicated to making the world a better place, making manufacturers, bigger, better, stronger, and getting that word out there for manufacturers. Jeff, I'll come to you with this one. What are one of the most common challenges that you feel that you see when you on first engagement, those first dates with a manufacturer, where you like say that ideal customer for you guys, where you and Carman just like, man, this is a perfect client. We know we could do so, move the needle for them. What are some of those challenges that they face, and how do you help them overcome those challenges?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think and Carman can probably chime in here and add even more to this, but I think where we've really seen, and a lot of this is the longer we've been focused on manufacturing, the more we know and the more we learn and the more we can kind of bring to it and see the patterns and begin to kind of understand the vertical in a way that, when we simply declared that we were a manufacturing marketing agency, we thought everybody'd show up and just say, oh, you're manufacturing marketing.
Yeah.
Of course we want to hire you. And then you realize it takes a while before people realize why you're actually different. And then it takes you a while to realize why you're actually different and what you're bringing to that. But I think where we really kind of understand things better than ever now is in this idea of, buying in a manufacturing context, especially in a B2B context, has a really long sales cycle in almost every case, right? Like, a lot of these people are dealing in 18, 24 months, 36 months and beyond before they close a deal. And, and these deals are massive in a lot of cases, eventually, not necessarily right away, depending on the manufacturer you're talking about. And I think what a lot of manufacturers don't necessarily understand right away when they come to us is that even if they have a phenomenal idea that solves a real problem, until their potential buyers are aware that this is a problem that can be solved, there's nobody actually looking for that thing. So, it can be difficult for a manufacturer to kind of understand that the product that they've created that solves a real problem that maybe, is incredibly sustainable compared to its competition, but is a totally new idea that nobody's really thought to look for before, is going to have a hard time getting introduced to the market. You can't just show up. There's no Google searches for it. There's no paid keywords that can be bought that are going to find it. And if they are, it's a recipe for massive waste in spend because you're trying to spill over into some consumer category that doesn't really relate to it. And, I think they're surprised at how difficult that's actually going to be to bring to market. And I think where we really see a fit for ourselves is in helping people understand what that process looks like for bringing that category to market or that product to market or that brand or whatever. But, it's certainly easier when there's already a bit of market demand for something and maybe you already have a portion of, ownership of a slice of that market already. That's when things get a little bit easier and maybe we'd rather play there more often. But I think we certainly find ourselves in these situations a lot where we're bringing new, untested, unknown products to market.
And that's really, I mean, what you said there is in businesses, they overlook that fact that our unique problem we solve, people don't understand that it's a problem that can be solved. You said that, and getting that message out so people understand it's something that can be solved in the way that you solve it is a huge undertaking. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is a huge undertaking. You're exactly right. And when you think about it was into a conversation a few days ago. I hope the people that I was chatting with aren't listening because then they're going to be upset with me. But you know, they said like, oh, well, you know, we've decided that we need to break through to the CEOs in our niche, and these CEOs are unaware that they exist. They're multi-billion-dollar companies, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. They're unaware that this exists, and they're unaware that the problem that they solve is even a problem. And so I just like, man, like, how many CEOs do you know that are out there trying to look for new problems to solve? Like they usually got a pretty big list of existing problems. So it's like, and I'm not saying that that it's not, there's not a way forward here. There may well be, but you need to come to terms with where you're at, and what it's going to take. You know, so I do think that is an interesting piece about how we help manufacturers kind of understand what the real B2B customer journey is, not the one that's talked about at parties, not the one that's, attention, decision, you know, buy, what?
AIDA.
Yeah.
We can get Alec Baldwin in here to deliver the Glengarry Glen Ross speech again.
Always be closing. Right? Always be.
Well, but the AIDA, the attention, interest, decision, action. It's like, yeah, great, yeah. There's actually 13 stages to this buying journey, not 4.
Right.
Yeah.
And
9 of them are before the A.
Yeah, exactly.
So Carman, before we went live, if you want to go here, you enlightened Damon and I on a new term that we were not familiar with.
Yeah.
Do we want to go there? What was this? It was BANT. What does BANT stand for?
Oh, well, the folks listening to us, if they've been in the world of sales at all, they'll certainly know BANT. BANT qualification. All I was suggesting there, Kurt, really is that, you know, an awful lot of marketers, manufacturing marketers, find themselves in this place a lot where they're getting pressure from the sales team that every lead that shows up needs to basically have a sack of cash over their back and
time to execution
and salivating, you know, and that's not how most leads show up. And it's like that notion of, do people have budget authority, need timeline, BANT. And if they don't have that, then I don't want to talk to them as a sales guy or girl. But I should say most of the bad attitude in sales are from sales guys, not sales girls. And you know, I just tell our clients that BANT is BS. It's if you think you're going to operate in a highly niche category where there are a few hundred, maybe a few thousand companies in the world who can buy what you sell, and you're finally going to get that engineer that you've been dying to talk to in that target account, you're finally going to get them on the blower, and if they don't have budget for this month, you're going to tell them to go pound sand? I don't think so. You know, that's not the right way to do this. It's not the right way to think about it. And it's not the right way of thinking about gaining attention in those kind of niche categories. It's we got to be a bit more committed to the people that we're trying to serve and break through, and understanding that in those niche categories, they're not all in market at once. You know?
Yes.
You know?
Right.
So, yeah.
I absolutely love that. And so, I know, man, this is such a great conversation. So I know I want to be mindful. We'll start winding down here in a minute or two, but so I have a couple questions left. Now, on your website, you talk about digitally enabled sales. Now, Jeff, you guys are very modest guys. In my humble opinion, very, very humble. How about that? My humble opinion, you're very humble. So, but you've built a 17-person firm, and that is a massive accomplishment. You've been going at it since 2004. You survived, you know, an economic downturn in 2008. You've gone through COVID, and you have this great firm that you know, it's really impressive what you guys have done. For anybody out there, entrepreneurs out there, you know, entrepreneurship is lonely. Any words of wisdom, any advice, and like, what would you contribute your success to? You guys, you're almost on your 20th anniversary. What would you contribute your success at Kula Partners, and how you've been just rocking it with clients, manufacturers for since 2004?
Man, I think there's one thing that you can say that is the marker of success, at least in the agency business, from what I've seen, is the desire and ability to be open to change. You really need to be able to understand when things maybe aren't going in the direction that you want them to, and to be able to change direction or iterate or kind of improve on something that's already working in order to kind of drive towards the success that you actually want to have. We've been very lucky, and sometimes I think Carmen and I sort of shake our heads about how we've managed to build an agency of 16, 17 people that all are kind of open to things not being the same all the time.
Yeah.
And being, you know, agreeable to the notion that, you know, like, we're going to do this a little differently than we did it before, and we're going to continue to tweak this model, and we're going, you know, both our sales and delivery, and that we can learn things from other people. I think, you know, one of the things I learned really early on as an entrepreneur is that I should not be afraid of reaching out to people who may have wisdom that I can learn from. Most people aren't jerks. Most people will be more than happy to kind of talk about how they did something, even in the same industry. I mean, I meet all the time with other agency owners, young agency owners, you know, people who are starting out freelancing. Anytime somebody emails me and wants advice or an understanding of kind of what we've done or how they might be able to do something similar, I have never turned anyone down in that. And I've never been turned down by anyone that I've asked for advice from. So I think that, you know, being open to change and being willing to ask for advice and share what you've learned is kind of, for me, the things that have sort of resulted in us being successful.
I couldn't agree with you more on the especially the ask. You know, I know that's when we're talking about superpowers, that's a huge weakness of mine. You know, like, you know, who wants to help, but everybody is willing to help. Jeff, that was like a great line. You know what? How about a little round of applause for Jeff right there? Great round. That was all right. Carmen, I'm coming at you, dude. On your LinkedIn profile, if I'm not mistaken, and on your website, you guys talk about, sounds like you guys have this amazing, wonderful record collection going on at Kula Partners. Did I see that on your LinkedIn profile? So let's go here. You and Jeff just absolutely crushed it with a client. The client called you up. They sent a nice testimonial. They're raving about how wonderful and how amazing you are. What record are you pulling out?
Ooh,
there you go.
This is interesting because Jeff and I agree on an awful lot of things, but we have actually very different musical taste.
Oh, do you really? All right.
Here we go.
So in this instance, I need to find a record that I like, but also I know that Jeff likes, if I'm going to be true to a mutual celebration. So I would probably pick a Canadian band, actually, probably a Hey Rosetta album. Hey Rosetta is the name of the band, and they have this fantastic song, "I Hate Winnipeg." They're from Winnipeg.
No, I really hate to do this to you, but
they're not from Winnipeg. They're from Newfoundland.
Well, Hey Rosetta's from Newfoundland. The I Hate Winnipeg song is by the Weakerthans, who are from Winnipeg.
That's it. Oh, damn. See, now, if this wasn't live, we could edit this.
You know what?
We could edit it, but no.
You know what? I know, but I'm a huge Tragically Hip fan. How about the Tragically Hip? Could we pull out a hip song?
That we could pull out a hip song, and that would have been an easy one. See, I fell into the trap, Kurt, because I went with the bands that Jeff likes, Hey Rosetta, and
why don't you tell? Like, what would you put on, Carmen? You'd be put on Blonde on Blonde.
What would you put on?
I'd probably put on Bob Dylan, Blonde on Blonde, or Highway 61 Revisited from Bob would also be nice, or something from Connor Oberst. And I assure you, if I quote a lyric from any one of those albums, I know exactly who the hell I'm talking about.
Hey, you know what?
The Weakerthans and I Hate Winnipeg, I'll never live it down.
No, dude. Oh, man, I made a blunder last week, Damon. Remember that one? So trust me, when you do live, trust me, I do blunders every week. But hey, you know what? And if I, you know what, I got to come up and visit you guys. We'll crank a little hip when I come up your way. Jeff, what album are you cranking, dude?
Oh man, I saw the Hip 19 times before Gord Downey died. They were the first band I ever took my wife to see. She reminded me on the way in. This was at the Road Apples tour at the Halifax Forum in 1991. She told me she hated Gord Downey's voice on the way in to the show. And we almost broke it off right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know what? I'm kind of surprised that you stuck with her. I'm going to be
I
honest.
know. I am too, but she's pretty wonderful in every other way. But she doesn't like Gord.
Just a little.
But
there's a connection to a Tragically Hip song in here, where she said she tells Gord that she doesn't give a blank about hockey.
Yeah,
and he never saw someone say that before.
yeah. No, that's for sure. But I'm a sucker for Canadian rock, probably more so than Carman. I've always been a huge fan. No, Rush is not in there actually.
No, Rush, okay.
If you could have Rush without Geddy Lee's voice, I would be all about it.
Yeah.
But
drumming, right?
Yeah, so, man. Yeah. Lifeson and that's all great. But my absolute favorite band is a punk rock band from Winnipeg called Propagandhi. It's very action forward, vegan, all of these things, which I am not, but I certainly appreciate a lot of the things that they're on about. I've seen them a number of times as well, and I just love a super heavy punk band with intricate metal riffs.
There you go.
I have to say, Damon, the first time, and we're probably a couple hundred episodes in, first time that we really got to geek out on Canadian rock and spend a little quality time about the Tragically Hip. I think so, Jeff. I think I've seen them like maybe 5 or 6 times. Huge Hip fan. So that was awesome. Okay,
the fact that Winnipeg has been mentioned 2 or 3 times in this is astonishing.
Yeah.
Even by Manitoban standards.
Yeah, no, they try not to talk about it.
So, all right, we'll start winding down. So, guys, thank you for letting you satisfied a little hip obsession that I have. So, thank you for that. So, all right, let's wind down. Guys, I dropped your LinkedIn profiles, dropped your website, your amazing, incredible podcast. Jeff, why don't you close us out? Anything, and Carman, I'll come to you, but any last parting words of wisdom, any marketing advice, anything else that you want to share with our esteemed audience?
Ooh, that's a pretty broad thing.
Can you save the world in like 30 seconds or less, Jeff?
Yeah. I probably should have prepared for this a little better, but I don't know. I mean, I think really, again, I'll just kind of go back to that idea of sort of how we've built the agency and how we think about things. I think you should just be really open to opportunity, open to change, open to meeting new people, open to connecting with others. All of that seems to really resonate with a lot of the folks that we speak with, and it certainly is a big part of my life. So I thank you again for having us on the show. It's been wonderful to be with you.
Oh, Jeff,
thank
you. Appreciate it. Hey, and before we got a nice comment here from Kathleen. Okay, since we're talking music, I just released a new song inspired by Joni Mitchell about Vicious Psycho, blah, blah, blah. She's another Canadian, so that's fantastic. And here we got Nicole, my partner in crime. Better late than never. Nicole is here. Of course, like Bare Naked Ladies, there's some other we'll think, you know what, Jeff, Carman, we're going to have to geek out on some other Canadian bands because I'm all into this. But Carman,
there's a lot of them, man. You just start going down the list.
And I've got a bunch in my head, but I don't want to digress. So Carman, take us home, brother. Any parting words of wisdom, any Carman golden nuggets that you want to drop, piece of advice for our manufacturers out there that you could share?
You should tell them, Carman, about the connection between the Bare Naked Ladies and Halifax.
Yeah, but it doesn't answer the question.
It's true, it doesn't. But the song "Hello City" is about how much they hate Halifax.
Yeah. And Jeff's going to he's just teeing it up so that he can answer the question better than I. But I think the advice would be I don't know if this is advice to manufacturers so much as it is to marketers and just people trying to figure out what it is they're doing and in their career and how they're progressing in it. One of my favorite quotes is "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." And I think in this world of live casts and LinkedIn and Instagrams and everything else that happens in social, I think there's an awful lot of people out there projecting images and trying to act a part or trying to do something, and everybody else smells it a mile away. And I've found over the years, it can be rough around the edges in a few parts. Sometimes my turn of phrases will offend, etc. And I've spent some of my career trying to battle against that or try to be proper. And I think when I've been best is when I've just been myself. And I think everybody else anybody that's ever worked with me, I'd say is the same. So we try to encourage everybody that works here to live by that. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And the minute you kind of figure that out, I think a lot of the other stuff comes easy.
Bam. Just dropped a mic, dude. That was all right.
Yep.
All right, guys. First off, Carman, Jeff,
Awesome.
what a gift you two are. Thank you. I invite everybody, if you've been sitting around, maybe it's a good time to stretch. Why don't you stand up and let's give a huge roaring round of applause for Jeff and Carman from Kula Partners. These guys are just absolute rock stars. You want to connect with them on LinkedIn, check out their podcasts, go to their website. If you're a manufacturer out there, boy, and this resonated, and you want to talk a little Canadian rock, how about Jeff, one more? How about Our Lady of Peace? I used to be a huge Our Lady of Peace fan.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, we'll wind down. Thank you so much for joining us today. What an honor and privilege to spend time with these fine gentlemen. This was great. We appreciate everybody out there. Boy, just, if I'm like, you guys are so inspiring. If you guys just go out there, just be someone's inspiration. As Carman said, just be yourself. You know what, Carman, though my mom thinks everybody, digs me, it's just, but just be yourself, just be yourself. Damon, take it away, dude. What a great episode, man.
Wow, really, this has been awesome talking to you guys about this, and the just how marketers can really think about what they're doing and help people get their message out there. I want to thank everyone that joins us week in and week out. We got Val, we got Diane, we got John, and all the other people too. We had Kira, Felix, Hyatt, Rukundo, Gary. Great to see you here today, Gary. Kathleen, Nicole Donnelly, as you said earlier, is here today. But I want to thank everyone for stopping by, dropping a comment, and all those people that were listening, but you didn't comment. You're important to us as well. We will be back again on Monday. Who do we have Monday, Kurt?
Oh my goodness. It's a powerhouse on my dude. Just you sit back, you just get some rest over the weekend. Don't stay up super late for the Super Bowl. Well, you're 3 hours behind, so you're good. I'll not stay up late on Sunday because we've got a great killer guest on Monday.
Yep.
So
ready to go on Monday.
Have a great weekend. And Jeff and Carman, hang out with us 1 second. And God bless everybody. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.